Grateful day to all, and my topic is meaning and classification of overhead. Meaning of the overhead. Overhead are the ongoing expenses of the operating business. They are not directly tied of the production or specific cost unit, essential of business functioning. They are not vary directly with output direct materials and direct labors. Overhead are those expenses that relate to running the business. They are not including the expenses that make product or delivery the service. For example, overhead often included rent and executed salaries. In simple term, overhead is equal to indirect cost of running a business. Categories of overhead: factory and production overhead, administration overhead, selling and distribution overhead. Example of overhead: factory and office rent, utility bills, for example electricity and waters, salary of office staffs and insurance, depreciation equipment, administrative expenses. Classification of overhead. In cost accounting, overhead are classified to help in accurately allocation of cost of product, department or activities. The classification typically is done by three main ways. They are by function, by behavior and by element. The classification of overhead, the first one is functions. The function is based on departments and activities. The functions have four types: factory overhead, administration overhead, selling overhead and distribution overhead. Factory overhead is referred to indirect cost in the manufacturing process. For example, factory rent, indirect labors and tools. And then administrative overhead refer to cost for general administrative of the business. For example, office salary, legal fees and stationery. Selling overhead is referred to cost of selling and marketing. For example, advertisement and sales commission. Distribution overhead is referred to the cost of delivery product to customers. For example, packing, shipping and delivery van cost. Classification of overhead, second one is behavior, is based on cost of behavior with production. This classification shows how overhead to response changes in output or activity level. This overhead have three types. They are fixed overhead, variable overhead and semi-variable overhead. Fixed overhead refer to remain constant regardless of production volume. For example, rent, manager salary and insurance. Variable overhead is referred to changes directly the level of production. For example, indirect material, fuel and overtime. Semi-variable overhead is referred to both fixed and variable elements. For example, electricity bills and maintenance cost. The classification of overhead, third one is element, is based on nature of expenses. The element focus on the types of resources consumed. The elements have three types. They are indirect materials, indirect labor and indirect expenses. Indirect materials is referred to the material used indirectly for the production, for example lubricants and cleaning supplies. Indirect labors, wages of workers not directly is involved for the production. For example, supervisor and maintenance staff. The third one is indirect expenses. Indirect expenses is other indirect costs. For example, rent, depreciation and utilities.